Ancient Mesopotamia, often referred to as the cradle of civilization, was a region where the interaction between religion and politics created a distinct and powerful system of governance. Central to this governance was the theocracy, a system in which political leaders derived their authority from divine sanction. In Mesopotamia, the concept of priest-kings and divine rule played a pivotal role in the shaping of their political, social, and cultural landscapes. This theocratic system profoundly influenced not only the functioning of the state, but also the everyday lives of its people. By examining the political structure, role of priest-kings, religious institutions, and the relationship between religion and statecraft, we can better understand the complexities of theocratic rule in ancient Mesopotamia. The role of religion in Mesopotamian governance. In ancient Mesopotamia, religion was not simply a spiritual or moral force, but an integral part of the state apparatus. The gods were believed to have direct influence over human affairs, and it was the task of the ruler, often a king or high priest, to mediate between the divine and the human realms. The Mesopotamians believed that the gods were responsible for maintaining order in the cosmos and on earth, and that the king's role was to uphold this divine order. This notion is exemplified in the Akkadian phrase Sharu Rabu, meaning great king, which often carried the implication of a divine mandate. The close relationship between religion and statecraft in Mesopotamia meant that rulers were seen not just as secular leaders, but as divine representatives on earth. The gods were thought to choose the rulers, and the king was expected to serve as the intermediary between them and the people. Kings like Sargon of Akkad, Hammurabi of Babylon, and Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon were often portrayed as chosen by the gods, with their rule justified as a divine right to maintain order and protect the people. Priest kings, the central figure of divine rule. The concept of priest kings, where the ruler also held a high religious office, was one of the most striking features of theocratic governance in Mesopotamia. In many city-states, especially in Sumer, the king was not only a military leader and administrator, but also a high priest who performed religious rituals and oversaw temple activities. The dual role of priest and king was particularly significant because it reinforced the ruler's divine legitimacy and enhanced their control over both the spiritual and temporal aspects of society. The idea that the king was a representative of the gods was most evident in the titles they held. For example, the kings of Sumer were often called Lugal, meaning big man, but this title was more than just a secular honorific. It implied that the king was the divine representative on earth, a role that gave them great authority over religious practices and temple wealth. Kings were also known to act as the high priests of major deities in the pantheon, ensuring that the rituals performed were in accordance with divine will. In the Sumerian city-state of the king was not only a ruler, but also the chief priest of the moon god Nana. Similarly, in Akkad and Babylon, the king's primary role was to maintain order by upholding the will of the gods through religious rituals, including sacrifices, prayers, and temple construction. The king's role as both a religious and political figure made them an essential part of Mesopotamian society, where the boundary between the sacred and the secular was often blurred. The role of temples and priests. While the king played a central role in the religious life of Mesopotamia, the temples and priesthoods were also crucial to maintaining the theocratic system. Temples in Mesopotamian cities were not only places of worship, but also important economic and political centers. They owned large tracts of land, controlled agricultural production, and managed the distribution of resources. The wealth of the temples helped support the kingship, and the king in turn ensured that the temples remained powerful. Priests, particularly high priests, held considerable power in these institutions. They were responsible for performing daily rituals and ceremonies to appease the gods, ensure divine favor, and guarantee prosperity for the city-state. Priests also interpreted the will of the gods through various means, including divination and omens. By serving as intermediaries between the gods and the people, priests wielded significant influence over the political decisions made by the king. In some instances, the king himself was a priest, further consolidating the power of the theocratic system. However, in other cases, the king may have had to consult the high priest, particularly when seeking approval for important decisions. For example, Hammurabi's famous code of laws was said to be divinely inspired by the god Shamash, and it was likely that the priests played an important role in the dissemination of the code and its enforcement. The temple economy was central to the functioning of Mesopotamian society. Temples stored vast amounts of wealth, including offerings from the people, and controlled significant resources, such as land, which they used to support agricultural production. These economic activities allowed the priests to support the king's military and administrative functions. Moreover, temples acted as centers of learning, preserving and transmitting knowledge about religious rituals, law, and astronomy. King's divine mandate. The belief in the divine right of kings was central to Mesopotamian theocracy. The king's authority was not just secular but religious, derived from the gods themselves. This divine mandate, however, was conditional on the king's ability to maintain justice, peace, and prosperity. If a king failed in these duties, it was believed that the gods would withdraw their support, leading to the king's downfall or the collapse of the state. The relationship between the king and the gods was portrayed as a reciprocal one. The king was expected to offer sacrifices, build temples, and perform rituals to honor the gods and ensure their favor. In return, the gods would grant the king success in warfare, abundant harvests, and protection from disasters. Failure to live up to these expectations could lead to divine punishment, as seen in the downfall of several kings in Mesopotamian mythology and history. For example, the Epic of Gilgamesh describes the king Gilgamesh's struggles with his divine nature and his quest to find immortality after the death of his friend Enkidu, a result of divine judgment. The theocracy and military expansion. The theocratic system in Mesopotamia was not only about religious authority, but also political and military power. Kings who ruled through divine authority often sought to expand their territories, both to increase their influence and to fulfill what they believed was their divine mandate to bring order to the world. Military conquests were often justified as acts of divine will, and kings would seek approval from the gods before embarking on campaigns. For example, Sargon of Akkad, one of the most famous Mesopotamian rulers, is portrayed as having been chosen by the god Enlil to establish his empire. Sargon's military campaigns were not only about expanding his territory, but also about imposing divine rule over new peoples. By portraying his conquests as the fulfillment of divine will, Sargon strengthened the legitimacy of his rule and expanded the influence of his empire. Similarly, Nebuchadnezzar II of Babylon was deeply involved in religious and military affairs. His famous building projects, including the reconstruction of the Temple of Marduk in Babylon, were seen as acts of piety that pleased the gods. His military conquests were framed as divine missions to secure Babylon's dominance in the region. The theocratic system in ancient Mesopotamia, with its priest-kings and divine rule, shaped the political, religious, and social structures of one of the world's earliest civilizations. The intertwining of religion and politics created a society in which the ruler was both a political leader and a religious figure, charged with maintaining divine order. The temples played a crucial role in this system, providing economic support for the monarchy and acting as centers of religious and political power. While the specific forms of Mesopotamian theocracy varied across different city-states and periods, the belief in divine rule remained a central tenet of Mesopotamian thought. The priest-kings and their role as divine intermediaries left a lasting legacy on the governance systems of subsequent civilizations, influencing the development of kingship and religious authority in the ancient world.